Steeler Nation, what is up? So glad that you joining me today on this beautiful Monday. It's actually not beautiful outside, but it feels good knowing that even though the Pittsburgh Steelers were playing in Arizona where it was sunny and where it was beautiful, it is great to know that it's sunny here just because the Pittsburgh Steelers won that game in fantastic fashion, winning that game by the score of 23-17 over the Arizona Cardinals. And this is what we call the hangover because we give it that prerequisite 24 hours or so to let everything sink in. So we're just not coming on with knee jerk reactions from the game. And you know how it goes. When you're hungover, sometimes it's a bad hangover and you're like, oh man, what have I done? And then, like I like to say, you have that one. It's like, hey, that was a great night. I might have done some crazy stuff, but woo, it feels good. And that's exactly what the Pittsburgh Steelers did as they won that game to go 8-5 on the season after starting 1-4. It's feeling really good. And I know a guy who likes to partay, and his name is Tony Defeo. He's my partner here on Behind the Steel Curtains Steelers Hangover. And Tony, I'm glad you are joining me today.
Hey Brian, happy Monday! Another great win, 8-5, and I can't believe we actually have a realistic shot at making the playoffs. Who would have thought?
Yeah, who would have thought? Everybody was talking back on September 30th when the Steelers hosted the Baltimore Ravens to fall down to 1-4. Everybody was talking about how this will be Mike Tomlin's first losing season. We've got to blow this whole thing up, and now there's no blowing anything up. You're looking at the 6th seed and possibly, quite possibly, the 5th seed if you beat the Buffalo Bills at home in prime time on Sunday evening. So for me, I'm feeling good, and it's all about that. And it's all about the fact, Tony, that the title of the show is at 8-5. Are the Steelers playing with house money? And we're going to discuss that in a little bit because we were talking about how they had nothing to lose. Now they kind of have something to lose now. They're really, with 3 games left, they've got a legitimate shot at a 5th seed because realistically, that division title is gone. There's no way. I mean, it would be absolutely crazy for that to happen, and especially with the way that the Baltimore Ravens are playing. It's not going to happen, and that's fine. But what you're looking at, you control your controllables, and what you control is possibly the number 5 seed, and you're playing right now your greatest rival for that number 5 spot in the Buffalo Bills. It's a chance for Duck Hodges, the Steelers defense, Deion Kane, Kareth White, all of those guys to say, hey, we're not playing with house money anymore. We have legitimate currency. So we'll be talking about that. But first, I want to welcome everybody in here. And as always, we here on StreamYard, we join in and have you on the live chat. And it's great. And it's always great to have our Steeler family. It's our BTSC family. And everybody comes on. We feel like even though we're in all parts of the U.S. and sometimes the world, because we are international as well, it's really nice to know that we feel like these are our Steelers friends and family, and we're always together, win or lose, after these games. And it's nice to know. And it feels like we know you guys. I mean, I see names like Getting Better and Jaredevil and Steve O'Neill and Cree Ickes, and I see those names, and those are just 4. There's so many. I see these names, though, and I'm like, I feel home because you guys are our guys. And you ladies are our ladies. Ryan O'Toole's another one. So, names up here, and we want to have new names too. And how can you support the show? It's simple. We do have the super chat where you could go throw in a couple bucks to go ahead and get your question up to the top of the queue. And that supports the show in one way. But the real way to support this show is to go ahead and like it. Not just like it. Every time you watch it, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and hit that little bell. Let's ring that bell. And when you ring that bell, that's saying that you're going to get some notifications every time we go on. So that's great. We were talking about Steeler family, BTSC family. Here's one of them, Michael O'Malley from Portland, Oregon. He's having a great hangover, and he's feeling really good about it. So use that live chat, use that super chat, but just hang out with us, have fun, because that's what it's here for, and this is the kind of hangover that you love when you win those games. So first thing first, I'm going to go ahead and ask Tony, what are your knee-jerk reactions of that game, and when did you know that this game was in hand?
Oh, well, my knee-jerk reaction to that game is another great performance by the defense. I thought the defense was elite yesterday, and I thought it really bailed them out a few times. And I thought Devlin Hodges made huge strides. I mean, that was my another knee-jerk reaction I had from that game. I thought he made some throws that I didn't think he had in him. As far as when I thought they had the game in hand, not until Joe Haden had his second pick with 36 seconds left. I thought they had the game won after T.J. Watt had to pick in the end zone, but then of course the disastrous fake punt happened and everything changed. But it wasn't until Joe Haden had the second pick.
You know what? That disastrous that fake punt. I don't know what happened. I really do not know what happened in that game. With that fake punt, it's really like in A Few Good Men. Who ordered the code red? Who ordered the fake punt? So now it's coming out today, and what's coming out today is this. Jordan Berry said, it was in there, but they weren't going to use it, but we were practicing for it, and I did not get to see that it was canceled, and there was just miscommunication. You got away with it yesterday, but wow, that really could have been disastrous, as you say.
Oh yeah.
So, with that being said, Tony, that was probably one of the worst things of the night, and it still didn't kill you. But what they had was a pretty good game plan on both sides of the ball, because you really needed a really good game plan on both sides of the ball, because you have Devlin Hodges, who's still feeling himself out. I'm going to just stop right here and say he had a fantastic game. I thought, and you know how I go ahead and I'm on Randy Fichtner a lot. I thought it was a pretty good game. I still want to see him open it up a little bit more, but they did what they had to do with what they're playing with. And we go back to 2004, and we know that Ben Roethlisberger was not lighting it up that first year, but he was getting the win. Now, Devlin Duck Hodges, he joins Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Krusick of the only players to win their first 3 games starting a football game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's pretty amazing. And here's a funny thing about Krusick. In those games, he never had a touchdown pass. So, think about that. And I mean, he ended up going 6-0 to start his career, and then Bradshaw healed and came back. So that's kind of what happened there. But I mean, he held down the fort. Duck Hodges is not holding down a fort for anybody. He's the man right now for this team. Unless something happens to him, then you're going to see Mason Rudolph again. But for the foreseeable future, and probably to lead them all the way to the postseason, they're going to ride with Devlin Hodges. And you can't be wishy-washy on this. You can't go back and forth and say, if he has a bad game, is it time to bring in, it's time to pine for Paxton and bring him in? Is it time to go back and give Mason Rudolph another chance? No, not really. You've got this late in the season. You've got to know yourselves, and this is what they know. This is what they're practicing with. And every week they're going ahead and putting a game plan together to win football games with the skill set of Devlin Hodges. I want to see him throw the ball more. And I think he is the guy to be doing it. Randy Fichtner, who, like I said, I'm always on, did a little bit better with it. Some weird play calling later in the game and time management, which we can talk about that as well. I'm not giving him an A for the play calling, but it was a little more, it was better, and it suited the situation. On the defensive side of the ball, you have to have good play calling when you're dealing with an explosive young player like Kyler Murray. It was a year to the day that this man won the Heisman Trophy. Yesterday's game, it was a year. So with that being said, and I keep on saying yesterday, when this is recorded on the Monday after the game. So just to let you know, I'm still in real time. That's how I go ahead and do that. But they had a plan for him. And planning for a guy like that is tough, Tony. How do you feel they planned and executed that plan on defense going against a guy like Mr. Murray?
Well, they didn't let him get comfortable. I mean, you saw the quick release that he had. His release is elite. I was really impressed with how quickly he got rid of the ball. So what they did is they just kept the pressure on him the entire afternoon, because he's like your typical quarterback that was drafted number 1 or number 2 overall. He doesn't have a great line. They have a lot of problems in Arizona. So, he's been sacked, I think, more than any quarterback in the league. So, they just kept the pressure on the entire time, and they played a lot of zone too. And that's how Joe Haden was able to undercut that first, make that first interception early in the second half that stymied another drive, a potential scoring drive. So they just they kept them off balance the entire time. I mean, that's how you have to deal with a young quarterback like that. You have to keep pressure on him, and you have to keep him confused.
That's exactly what you have to do. And they did. They went after him. It looked early like they were going after him and they were just missing him, kind of like they did with of course, Baker Mayfield, another Oklahoma product that was picked number 1 overall just the year before. So that's, they had some time to practice for this guy because they've been practicing for this type of player 3 out of the last 4 weeks. I think Kyler Murray is a lot more dynamic, and he's going to be a very good player in this league. But they went after him. And we have a super chat here that I've been saving for a while. We'll go ahead and get to most of your questions a little later on in the show. But Sean Manahan pledged $2 and said Steelers had 5 sacks yesterday, not 4. We have 48. Now, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm having a hard time I thought right away that they had 5 sacks. I thought Bud Dupree had more than 1 sack. Because when you have a guy like Kyler Murray running around back there and getting caught 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, that's a sack, even though he's running wide. He's not passing the line of scrimmage. But I think they added 1 because when we were looking for the Steeler preview, when we were looking at stats, it was saying 4. Mm-hmm. Now they're saying 5, but I can't see who is credited with the 5th sack, because even though it's saying 5, you look on the same page, it's only showing 4 sacks. I believe it's Mark Barron, of course, Bud Dupree, Cam Hayward, and there's another one in there, but there should have been a 4th.
I think it
should have been a 5th.
I think it was the one at the end of the game, the one that Murray fumbled and then he fell on it. I think that's the 5th one, but I don't know who was credited with that.
And then it should be Bud Dupree.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking there. So if anybody knows that, and I am behind in the comments section, but if you could see that, Tony, and if anybody knows, please let me know. I'm really confused on that one. But nonetheless, they put the game plan together. They looked really good, and you got to appreciate that. And something else with appreciation, another $2 pledge from Snowman, long time, not a first time, but a long time. And he mentions happy belated birthday to Mr. Bryan Anthony Davis. Thank you very much. I tell you what, I didn't tell anybody on the show last week. I didn't tell anybody at all. Everybody, Dave Schofield, Jeff Hartman, Lance Williams, Tony, everybody really played up my birthday and made me feel good. So thank you very much. And it's really nice to be noticed for that. And I appreciate it. And it's really funny. I was watching every other single show, and even after it was mentioned, it kept on coming up all week long. That's the most I've ever celebrating my birthday, and it's all because of you guys, and it really feels good.
I'm a terrible co-host. I'm the one who always remembers birthdays, and I went the whole show without wishing a happy birthday. It completely slipped my mind until afterwards. So happy belated birthday.
It's happy regardless, and I appreciate it. And you guys, like I said, make me feel really good. Yeti gives us $1. There's not a question up there, but if you do have one, feel free to throw it in. Out in White is and Yeti says great live show, so thank you very much. Alton White, he put in the fact that Bud Dupree has 9.5 sacks. And then you look at the fact that they are going to go right now, and actually I'm messing things up here. I have a new laptop, and I'm still working my way around it. So Alton White says 9.5 sacks. You throw in TJ Watt's 12.5 sacks as well, and everybody else's, and you've got 48. And I mean, Cam's up there too. Cam, I believe, has 8, if I'm not mistaken. So you potentially have 3 guys, and that'll be the first time in Steeler history 3 guys in double digits in sacks. I would love to see that. And we're talking about TJ all the time. We definitely know what Bud is doing right now, and that man is going to get paid.
And I think it's a testament to their secondary, how much it's improved that Dupree and Watt are having the years that they're having, because look at how often they drop back in pass coverage the last couple of years, and they're not doing that as much this year. They're just relentless. I mean, it looks like they're going to get there just about every time a quarterback drops back. So I think you have to credit the secondary too for the kind of years that Watt and Dupree are having, and Cam Hayward.
Yeah, I mean that's a part of it, because we always talked about, and it goes the other direction too. We used to always talk about what's the secondary's problem. The secondary's problem in the past has always been the fact that there was no pass rush, and they're getting picked on more. So, it goes in circles, and it's a vicious cycle for the opposing offense when you can't win, because either you're getting rushed like crazy, and then it turns into the defensive backs are blanketing you. So this is really the best Steeler defense I've ever seen. Chris Boyd asked this question: what is the team sack record? And I'm going to go ahead and say 56, set in 2017. They had 50 last year, and if they get 56 again this year, which with 3 games left, that's 8 sacks, they will have the highest 3-year total for sacks in NFL history, which is incredible to me when you talk about the 1980s Chicago Bears, because we were talking yesterday, I believe Lance brought it up, that there was a Chicago Bears team that had 72 and 87. And I believe a Vikings team, Chris Dolman and Jack Del Rio and guys like that, with about 71. So, this is really a special defense. I love what I'm seeing from them. I love what I'm seeing from this entire team, because, I'm looking at this entire team and I'm feeling the way I did in 1989. Good defense, an offense that is not really going to light anything up and not going to scare anybody, and keeps on finding ways to win. So that's why I'm so excited about this team. So we go back to the question now, and we are going to talk more and more about individuals on the defense. We're going to go ahead and talk about not just that, but we're going to give out valedictorians and game balls. We'll do that as well for yesterday's game. But I want to ask this question: is it expected now? Are they still playing with house money with nothing to lose? I don't think so. A month ago, and same with Devlin Hodges. I don't think he's playing with house money anymore either.
I agree totally. I mean, I said it on Twitter yesterday when TJ Watt had that interception in the end zone. It was the loudest I screamed all year, and it was the most I've been into a game all year, which tells me that I can smell the playoffs. So I think this team is it's established an identity on both offense and defense. And you can say what you want about the offense, about how it it's really deficient, and it is in a lot of ways, but it's also compromised due to injury. And you have so many young, inexperienced parts. But this is an elite defense, and this team has a great opportunity now. I mean, this team has what, 2 more wins and it's in the playoffs essentially. So when you have everything in front of you, I mean, it's going to be a disappointment if they don't make it in. Now, it's a testament to the character of this team that they've gotten this far. But I think you're not playing with house money anymore. This team, I think, anything short of a playoff berth would be a disappointment.
Look at Radar 1982. I know the Dolphins are so mad right now. They traded Minkah thinking they were going to get a top 5 pick. He was a steal. I'm telling you, that was a smart trade for the Dolphins. But what they didn't realize is they were dealing with the Steelers. And there's only a few teams that can pull that off, and a few organizations that can pull that off, because most teams are going to fold. Yeah. The Steelers were like, hey, we know we lost Ben Roethlisberger. We're still making this trade because we know who we are. That's the bottom line of the whole thing. They knew exactly that they weren't going to go 1-15. They knew who they were, and they still expected this, and they thought they were getting somebody that they could put in that defense and win now. And guess what happened? They didn't win right away because they had him a few days, played in the San Francisco game, and he had a pick in that game, which paid immediate dividends. But the defense did not come together, but he was the one who started pulling them together. The one guy that I always say, and I probably have said this so much over the last 10 weeks or so, is he doesn't get enough credit as Vince Williams, because if Vince Williams was playing in that San Francisco game, Pittsburgh wins that game because they're not running on them. Teams aren't running on them like they were the first 3 games of the season.
Right.
So I'm going to say that right now. Vince Williams is there, they win. But Minkah, Vince coming back, everybody came together. Maybe it's adversity that also brought this team together. But they're not tanking. George Teston says no tanking. No.
I mean,
they weren't thinking about tanking.
And you look at recent history. Look at the Ravens a few years ago. They lost Flacco. Other than the Steelers, they really couldn't beat anybody, and they were 5-11. The Colts, look at all the problems they've had in recent years. With Peyton Manning's injury, and then in recent years with Andrew Luck, and now he's gone, and now they're probably going to miss the playoffs again. So I think last year Aaron Rodgers was hurt for a good deal of time. The Packers missed the playoffs, and Mike McCarthy was fired. So what the Steelers are doing right now is it's an outlier. I don't think people realize how special this season is right now, and it's a testament again to their character and like you said, their willingness to not give up and not tank.
Well, let's talk about a few things, and before we get into that, let's talk about injuries. There's really nothing significant to point out for the second week in a row about injuries in this game. I'm going to knock on wood here. Do my John Gruden. Knock on wood if you hear me. And Hard Knocks, if you don't know what that's from. But, 2 weeks in a row, there was nothing really significant. And they've been getting killed with injuries all year long. It seems like every game there's not another guy. So we'll go ahead and talk about.
Oh, can I say something to Dante Harris? I have given Tomlin credit. I give Tomlin credit all the time. It's a testament to him that they're not tanking. That's who I'm giving credit to.
You know what? We can't say it enough. And I went on a Tomlin, pro Tomlin on the post game show that I was blessed to be able to join Lance and Jeff in, and I felt great being on that show. And I'm like, look, we're always gonna find the next game they lose, it's gonna be all Tomlin's fault. Everybody's gonna be on them. But and Dante, I appreciate you bringing that up, but we're really homers when it comes to Mike Tomlin on the show. And I will say this about Tony Defeo. He's been threatened he has been threatened on our website for actually for an article he wrote that was very pro Tomlin. So I will tell you that when
Articles
Justin
plural.
Conway was that?
Articles plural.
Oh yeah, yeah. We Jeff Hartman considered getting like an armed detail to go ahead and help out Tony at one point last year. I remember when Dave Schofield was our community manager and he was mowing the lawn and he was like, "Gosh, I gotta stop," because he had his phone on and he's mowing the lawn. He's like, "All right, Tony just wrote an article. It's blowing up. I have to stop mowing the lawn now and go take care of this."
Anything about Tomlin, it usually blows up, and it's usually worth a lot of comments and emails. I can tell you that.
But this is we're talking about Coach of the Year. Do I think he deserves to be Coach of the Year? Yeah, hell yeah. Do I think he's going to win it? No. I mean, you've got what Shanahan's doing in San Francisco. You have Harbaugh in wherever he is in Baltimore.
and look at speaking of Shanahan, I mean, the 49ers lost Garoppolo last year and they completely fell apart. So losing your franchise quarterback and continuing to be a playoff team is not easy. And the fact that they're doing this is incredible.
And this is beautiful to see. $2 from Snowman. We got your back, Tony.
It's a good thing too, because I don't have very big biceps, as you can see. So,
love me some Defeo. That's great. He's polarizing on the. He's not on the show, but when you read some of his articles, he'll protect his work in the comment section. It's really fun to see. I just read. We're getting comments left and right. Darren Dalton, a good friend of the show. Mike Tomlin's efforts of keeping a team made of bubble gum and scotch tape in the winning column more than likely played a big role in Ron Rivera being released. Yeah, you know what? I could see that because there's a connection with the Panthers and Steelers, and we all know that because of David Tepper, who is, I believe it's David, who was a minority owner in Pittsburgh, who's now the owner of the Carolina Panthers, and that this goes back to a question that we had earlier on, and I can't remember who said it, who wrote it in, but are we going to lose Omar Khan and Kevin Colbert to the Panthers this year? And there are rumors of that. I don't think it's going to happen, actually. I can see, yeah, and getting bent with Bo says, are they going to go after Tomlin as well? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised either, but I wouldn't really worry about that. If you lose Kevin Colbert, you're going to go ahead and lose him to a guy like, not a guy, but to a situation that's retirement, I think. Really, at this point, is how you're going to lose. Wes, a big friend of the show, he hopes we lose Omar Khan, which I'd like to hear more about that because Wes doesn't like his contract structure.
I think he's worked miracles. I mean, to keep this team relative all these years after that Super Bowl run and all the big huge contracts that they had and to still be able to build a contending roster. I don't know. I think he's fantastic.
And so, I mean, I really don't think it's like one of those things. And we talked about this when the Redskins were talking about wanting Mike Tomlin and all the pros and cons. But look at what Mike Tomlin has here. He doesn't want to go anywhere. He really doesn't. And why would he? Why would you leave this situation with three coaches in 50 years? But back to and I do this, and I know I do this, I will go off subject like crazy. So I do apologize for that. But I will say this. Let's circle back to the question about is the job that they're doing the reason that Ron Rivera got let go? Well, David Tepper is looking at the Steeler organization. He's familiar with the Steeler organization. It's what he knows. He's a Carnegie Mellon guy. He was, like I said, a minority owner here. So, yeah, I could see the Steelers being a model for his ownership franchise. Snowman asks, is Omar Khan the next GM? I would not be surprised. I think that's why he has stayed here. He had an opportunity to go to the Los Angeles Rams. He had the opportunity to go, or maybe it was in St. Louis when they were after him, but it was the Rams organization. But he's had an opportunity to go, and I think they keep on telling him when Kevin goes and decides to hang it up, you're the next guy. That's probably that's thinking, and I think that's probably likely to happen as well. So Tony, we teased this earlier, and we talked about house money, and we both agree that the team is expected to be in the playoffs now at this point, and they're expected to go forward because, and the national media is picking up on them as well. But so we've established that. Now let's establish valedictorians for this game. I'm going to ask for one on offense and one on defense.
Oh, well, obviously, I think Deontay Johnson gets it on offense for sure. I mean, that the punt return. I mean, yesterday was another day when they only scored one touchdown on offense, and for him, they get that punt return early and break the game. Give him a 10-0 lead in the first quarter. That was huge. And then, of course, he had their only offensive touchdown in the third quarter. So he definitely gets mine for offense, and of course Joe Haden on defense. I mean, he ended a potential scoring drive early in the second half with an interception, and he ended the game late in the fourth quarter with an interception. So I think he definitely gets my valedictorian on defense.
I cannot argue with any of those guys, and those are probably my picks if I'm going first. Bottom line to that, my Johnson was my pick yesterday on the post game show. Haden wasn't because he was already selected, so I went with somebody else, and I went with Bud Dupree for the game he had. But truth be told, Bud Dupree is my 1B. 1A is Joe Haden for what he's done. This is his best season. This is actually, if you ask me, this is an all-pro season for Joe Haden. He is among the leaders in the league in pass defenses. He is now among the league leaders in interceptions. In fact, he is one behind Minkah Fitzpatrick's 5 now that he has 4. But this is how incredible his last few games have been. On November 10th, Los Angeles Rams come to town. They need to win this game desperately. Who closes out the game? The closer, not Kira Sedgwick. Closer. The closer is Joe Haden. Closed out that game. The next week, they played 4 days later, they played the Browns, and we're not going to talk about that game because that wasn't a win. The next week, they played Cincinnati. He did not have to close out that game. The week after that was the Cleveland Browns, his old foe. He closed out the game with a pick. Yesterday, he had 2 more and closed out the game again with another pick. He's the Iceman, Joe Haden.
And these aren't just your normal everyday picks either. I mean, these are athletic picks. He looks like Superman. He looks like he took a shot of from the fountain of youth. I'm getting mixing up my metaphors, but you know what I mean. He's just looking like a young like he did in the early 2010s when he was a Pro Bowler with the Browns. He's just having a fantastic year, and I think a lot of that is the pressure's off of him with guys like Minkah back there and Steven Nelson on the other side. He just doesn't have as much to worry about this year.
Let's look at the other side of the ball. You said Deontay Johnson. He is playing lights out for a rookie. He wasn't expected to have to contribute this much. I remember way back in June or July, when we were looking at, on the Steeler preview, we were previewing the rookies, and we looked at Deontay Johnson. You said if you have 30 catches out of this guy and 3 touchdowns, so that's a fantastic rookie season. He's got 4 touchdown receptions and a punt return. I'm going to go ahead and rip on another aftermarket site that calls themselves experts, and one of them was talking about a couple of weeks back that actually caught the attention of Deontay Johnson, but was tweeting out the fact that they miss Ryan Switzer because this guy is because Deontay Johnson does not know how to field a punt. And so I'd like to see him eat those words now when you're looking at the fact that besides Brady Keys in 1964, 55 years ago, with a 90-yard punt return, this is the longest punt return in Pittsburgh Steelers history. Not only that, it is just surpassed what was second place, was 2003's Antoine Randall L with an 84-yarder. So this is a fantastic punt return. And when these punt returns happen, you get better as a punt returner. You start feeling it. You start knowing the chances you can take. And so I think right away, well, I'll ask you the question. Has he secured the job, Tony? Is he the punt returner of the Pittsburgh Steelers going forward?
Absolutely. He absolutely is. I mean, yeah, he's muffed a punt or two, but he's a rookie. Those things happen, and there's a learning curve to being an NFL player, an NFL receiver, an NFL punt returner, and some people, like the people you mentioned, they don't always have patience when it comes to rookies. They're quick to make judgments on people right away, and that's not fair. And it's a tough job. Your first year in the NFL, and he's far surpassed what anybody thought he could do this year as a receiver and as a punt returner. I think he's the real deal.
Let me go ahead and jump in with this. I don't want to lose this. Michael O'Malley, this guy, every single week, he's asking you to hit the like button for us. He's a big supporter of our show. Throwing in $2 for that, but he's one of the ones asking for it, and that's how we keep this show going. So thank you, Michael. I really appreciate you. I wanted to go ahead and continue on that with just talking about rookies. Do you remember? I'm going to give you two names. These were rookie busts for the Pittsburgh Steelers in real time that year. Troy Polamalu was a bust. If you ask a myopic fan, Cam Hayward was a bust. I don't think anybody's going to call either one of those guys a bust. We don't give these guys time. That's all there is to it. You don't give these guys time at all.
Right. And not to stir up a controversy, because I don't think there is one right now, but it's like the same thing with Mason Rudolph. We don't know what his ceiling is. We think we know based on 7 or 8 games, but we still don't know. And we don't know what they think of him yet. And back in 2003, it was well known that within the organization, even though he was struggling on the field, the front office knew they had a special talent. They didn't know they had a future Hall of Famer, I don't think, but they definitely knew they had a special talent. And it was just a matter of time before he figured it out. And it turns out it was just 1 year before he figured it out. And so to make judgments on rookies, I think, it's what we do. I get it. We have opinions, and we're always being asked our opinions. But, sometimes you have to just sit back and wait and see what these guys are really made of before you can really make a final judgment on them.
Guess who was not considered a bust? 2016's Artie Burns was not considered a bust.
Right.
He didn't start yesterday. He ended up busting out. And when I say busting out, not becoming a bust. So I agree with that. But back at the end of 2016, he was making all rookie teams. He didn't keep it going, which I thought he had some talent. I thought he was going to be the next guy. Bud Dupree was considered a bust even after last year. He was still had about averaging about 6 sacks a year. He had over 20 sacks coming into the season, and in 4 years, and he was considered a bust. No one's going to call him that now. But everybody, because they wanted more out of the guy.
Marcus Gilbert.
Yeah. I agree with that. And a guy that we were talking about, Cam Hayward, it took Cam Hayward 3 years to bust out.
Right.
When I say, okay, I got to stop saying bust out, to come of age.
Right.
Speaking of coming of age, somebody asked a question earlier. I want to bring it up before I lose it, asking about Minkah Fitzpatrick's age. He came out at age 21 into the draft. This is his second season, so he's no older than 23, I would probably say.
He's a baby. He has so much time left.
So you know what? When you go ahead on draft day, and we're kind of struggling here at BTSC, thinking about the future and thinking about what we're going to be writing about in March and April, because we can't write about who the number one pick is. So we need to do a lot of articles about Minkah Fitzpatrick, but we have to celebrate. I mean, I'm already giving there's an A for the 2020 draft, because their number one pick is Minkah Fitzpatrick, and probably about the number 25, 24 position is where they're looking at right now. And that's a fantastic pick for this guy. No one can be complaining on draft day. Just you can't. So now we just got to figure out who they're going to get at number 50 something. Right. And that's going to be the fun part, trying to speculate for number 2. But remember, stranger things have happened, and you never know what kind of deals are going to be made to maybe get some other picks in there. I would not think it would be a number 1, but you never know. Right. So you mentioned your valedictorians. Like I said, I really like those. Boy, Deontay Johnson, his touchdown catch too, that was a beautifully thrown ball from Duck Hodges as well. That was a pro catch. I really liked it. Duck Hodges is my 1B, so I'm going to go ahead and give my game ball, since we already gave one to Deontay. I'll give it to Devlin Hodges. 16 of 19, 152 yards, 1 touchdown pass, 0 interceptions, so no duck eggs. That's a good thing. And he was playing with what he was given. He was playing with the game plan, and you can't fault Duck Hodges for the game plan. But what you can credit him with, we have not had a guy for a long time being able to extend plays and move the chains with his feet like he did with the 35 yards that he did yesterday. We didn't have that at all with Mason. Maybe once in a blue moon with Mason when he was playing, but this is something he knows when to go ahead and take off, and he's doing it really well. So that's my guy there, and I told you about how I thought Dupree had an amazing game. A guy who is getting a lot of love in the right now on the chat, in the chat room, is a guy that I was going to talk about. I'm loving me. Well, there's 2 guys, so we'll go ahead and say them both, because these guys are kind of linked because they were brought in right at the same time. But Kareth White was the guy I was initially talking about. As far as a running back, you know what, Tony? I look at this guy, and I just think of not exactly the same style, but I think of the production of Willie Parker when I see this guy. And I really, I mean, there's a part of me that believes that maybe he's the next guy. That could be a possibility. You never know.
Well, it's definitely going to be open for debate, because James Conner, I mean, they're going to have questions about him after 3 years of being plagued with injuries, for sure.
But the great thing about it is you're going to go ahead and bring back a guy like James Conner. You want him to come back. And you're not really worried about next year right now. We're not talking about next year at this moment, even though I'm going to contradict myself for an article that Tony and I are doing together. But Kareth White was never supposed to be a part of the equation because he just showed up. He was a 6th round draft pick of the Bears, and I don't really thought they wanted to go ahead and get rid of him. Deon Cain definitely was the Colts did not want to lose him. They lost him in the same way that the Steelers lost Tazar Skipper. They were making moves and trying to sneak under, and that's just something that happened. So these guys right now, Kareth White and Deon Cain, they're already a part of the equation for 2020 in my eyes. but I think they could make some definite, big plays when it comes to the stretch and postseason, depending how far they go or depending if they make it. So which one of these guys? I mean, I'm going to put you on the spot. We can't really say both, but which one of these guys are you buying in? You're buying stock in more.
I'm gonna say White, because I think, like I said, I think there might be an opportunity for him next year to ascend to the up the depth chart at running back, because he's shown, like you said, a lot of ability in a short period of time, and with James Conner and his issues with injuries, I mean, you just don't know if you can depend on him past his rookie contract. So I think definitely White is somebody that could be something for them in the not so distant future.
Michael O'Malley says it's fun when you have to figure out the depth chart at running back. It's a good thing. Yeah, you've got a stable of runners, and that's it. You bring James Conner back, you're not going to forget about. I hope White still has a spot on the roster when James Conner comes back. I expect him to. I would actually. Now, here's an interesting question, because you're keeping Benny Snell Jr. And he didn't have the greatest game yesterday, but he still had some really hard-fought runs. And you had some good action from Jalen Samuels, but who's the odd man out there? And I don't think it's Kareth White.
I mean, I think no offense to him, but I think Trey Edmonds could be, easily disposable. I mean, he's decent on special teams, I guess, but he doesn't really give you much on offense. So he's definitely somebody that who would be the odd man out, in my opinion, if you're talking about keeping Kareth White.
Yeah, that's definitely the guy, and I wasn't even thinking of them. I'm getting bent with Bo, Michael Toole, Reginald Rivers. They're all agreeing with you on that too. Bo says, can he go back to the practice squad? I think he
probably could.
I think he can. Yeah, but and you've gotten some good work out of Edmonds too as well. So he's all been playing fullback. BTSC Steelers Radio, thank you very much, Jefferson, for going and putting that in. Edmonds has been playing football. Oh, that's actually from Dave. I'm sorry. I saw -Dave. So yeah, Edmonds has been playing some fullback as well. So that complicates things. Doesn't matter. I don't even think Connor's coming back this week. I think if you see him back, you see him back for the Jets game. I really don't see him this week. So looking forward, though, you've got a good stable there. Wide receiver for 2020 in that second round might be a place you're going to go ahead and look. You're having two guys holding down the fort really well right now with James Washington and Deontay Johnson. It seems like every other week, one of those guys is WR1.
Mm-hmm.
When Juju Smith-Schuster comes back, and if he comes back healthy, he's going to be a lot more dangerous. And the reason he's going to be a whole lot more dangerous is you can't leave Deontay Johnson unattended. You can't leave James Washington unattended, because they've proven some things.
Yeah.
You might have 3 WR1s.
Well,
or you might have 3 WR1/3.
Right.
At this point.
Exactly. And you mentioned James Washington. What doesn't get brought up a lot, because he didn't make catches on those plays, were the 2 pass interference penalties he drew yesterday. I think they led to 10 points. I think they led to one led to a touchdown, one led to a field goal. So I mean, even while not catching the ball, I mean, he was able to get the offense hidden yards, just because of the fact that he's a deep threat. So, like you said, you're gonna have three potential number 1 receivers whenever Juju does come back.
There you go. Those 3, that's looking pretty good. The one position, and I'm sorry, I want to bring this up real quick. Dante Harris, you cannot leave Kane unattended either. Oh man, at 6'2" and as fast as he is, he's gonna kill you. So that's the guy. And I meant to go ahead and extend our conversation when we were talking about the two rookies. That's a good stable of four right there. Those are four guys right now. I mean, I think those are the guys you're going with for the future of that team. That's a really good stable of wide receivers. You know, Kane, I remember him at Clemson. I remember what he did, and he played really well for a championship team. The problem was he got into some trouble. It's just hoping that he could continue to stay out of trouble at this point. But it worries you because when you get that reputation, the randomness, and I'm going to say randomness of testing becomes a lot more frequent, and that, and especially we talk about our good old friend Mr. Butt Naked and Robbed, Le'Veon Bell. He still doesn't understand why he's getting tested all the time,
right?
And it's funny because I actually knew of a guy who was testing at the time, and it's funny because he was like, nah, he wasn't failing test. He just wasn't showing up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, whoa, I mean, was that just a couple? He goes, he's a Bryan. Probably not supposed to tell you this, but maybe 12.
Wow. Holy cow. That's not a good sign for him and his innocence, that's for sure.
And Dante Harris, I can't say it any better. Yeah, we just gotta hope he stays out of trouble. I'm laughing because Dennis, I love Dennis. I guess Dennis is smoking all of his weed. So.
Steeler Nation will do anything for a win.
See, you stick up. Everybody's got your back.
Right
there, you go. So that's what we're looking at. The weak link right now on the offense, and especially because of injuries, that tight end position. We don't know. I mean, Vance McDonald was in the concussion protocol. It's kind of scary with this guy because you just don't know if he stays healthy. You think that he's really good. When he's with Ben Roethlisberger, he's pretty good. Mm-hmm. Doug Hodges did really well with him as well. So I was hoping that they would start targeting him more, and I expect him to get targeted more. But now that he's hurt, he had 3 yards yesterday, and he got hit pretty hard on that one play, and then he's out. What happens there is Zach Gentry going to get some action? Is he going to see his first actual game?
He would almost have to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really just roll with one. Remedy This is saying that Vance is another Connor. And, hey, we love these guys. I love James Conner. I love Vance McDonald. I'm just we need them to stay healthy. But no one is more frustrated with their health situation than the individuals wearing those jerseys.
Yeah.
And so those guys are more frustrated than anyone.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what makes it frustrating is because, like, I keep talking about James Conner maybe not being around after his rookie contract, but I know he's a talented running back. I watched him at Pitt. He can do the job. He just has to stay healthy. And Vance McDonald has proven that he has that elite tight end ability. He just needs to stay healthy.
Here's the problem. You got to understand the problem with James Conner's rookie contract. And I said this way back in the summer. I think he is the least likely to sign a new contract from that draft class, because you've got to think you have some other guys that were drafted, and that was a pretty good draft for that team. TJ Watt goes number 1, even though he gets an extra year because he's a first rounder. But the guys that don't get an extra year are Juju Smith-Schuster, James Conner, Cam. So if somebody's going to go from that group, it's not going to be Cam, because you can get Cam on the cheap. So you don't have to worry about him. The guy you worry about bringing back at that point is going to be James Conner, because he's not going to win he's really not going to win the face-off with Juju on that.
Right.
And you're seeing, especially what you're seeing, and the guys you have in there that could go ahead and take over for him. So that's going to be an interesting situation when that comes up. And I guess after the 2021 season. But you know what? I love this team right now. I love everything about it. On defense, you're doing really well on defense with everyone. Your weak link on defense. Who is everybody? I mean, I would say Steeler Nation. Who gets the most guff?
Well, the new
out of anybody.
Yeah, the new Bud Dupree now would be, I guess, Terrell Edmonds. He's the new Bud Dupree, since Bud Dupree is now having his best year.
Okay, you know what? I actually wasn't going for him.
No.
But I agree with you 100. I would. Okay, there I am. Would be Mark Barron.
Oh yeah, okay. That's a good point.
But Mark Barron, you get good games out of him. Then you have games where he's more suspect. If Mark Barron is the weak link of your defense, and if Terrell Edmonds is the weak link of your defense isn't bad.
Right.
So that's it. And we know they have a defense. 4TL Music Group. Actually, I pulled up the wrong one. Bad. How good can the defense be next year with Tuitt and Davis back? You know, the Davis situation is really interesting to me because this is his walk year. His contract's up. So, or does he come back completely cheap?
I think he's going to want to be a starter. He's already been a starter in the league, and I think he's going to want to try to prove that he can go somewhere else and start for another team. So I don't think they're going to have him back next year.
Well, you know, that'll be interesting. But what if there's what if you can get him completely and no one else really wants him because he has no body of work this year?
But then I guess he would come back and he'd be great depth, and like he brought up earlier, maybe he beats out Edmonds for the other safety spot. I don't know, but I think at this point he's going to try to explore free agency.
It's interesting. I mean, and we're going to see what happens with Davis. Is he coming back this year? That's the other thing.
I mean, he's on the. He could. I mean, what was the original injury? I'm drawing a blank on his injury.
It was the shoulder, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, okay, shoulder. Yeah, so he's got to be close at this point, right? And there's only so many weeks left, so I hope so, because I think he would be an upgrade over people like Cam Kelly and Dangerfield. I think he would definitely be an upgrade for at the safety position for depth, and for somebody you can probably throw in there and get him some reps during the game too.
Okay, this would start off a major debate. I'm just going to ask you, if you have your choice, is it Edmonds or is it Davis?
Right now, based on the way the defense is playing, I'd have to go with Edmonds. I know he's not everybody's favorite player, but he has been. He is pretty solid. It is only his second year, and he has improved over last year. So I think we have to go with Edmonds. Remember, it's not always about your performance. It's about how you complement the guy next to you. And we saw how Ryan Clark complimented Troy Polamalu and before him Chris Hope. So there's some great chemistry going on in the secondary right now, and I don't know why you would want to mess with it.
I love what Edmonds does, but he's the guy that, like you pointed out, he's the guy that we have to pick somebody. There's always got to be somebody, which I wish we didn't have to, but that you're pointing out, because you can't have 11 superstars on a defense.
Right.
Edmonds is going to prove, I think, and we talked about this on draft night in 2018, I think he's a 10-year player for this team. I don't know if he's going to be anything super sexy, but he's going to be a solid player, and he's a contributor on this team. There's a lot of guys we could go back to 2008. You could bring up some guys on that team that weren't really super sexy names. Like Deshae Townsend played a long time in this league.
Mm-hmm.
He has never seen the Pro Bowl.
Right.
I don't believe, and if he has, I do apologize. But he's one of those guys that you couldn't have won without him, though.
Right. I mean, like you said, not everybody like Ryan Clark was a really good safety, but nobody ever noticed because Troy Polamalu was a Hall of Fame safety. But Ryan Clark played a lot of great games for them. And look at the playoff game against Baltimore. He had 2 turnovers that led to 2 touchdowns that got them back in that game. So, not everybody makes splash plays on every play. It doesn't mean they're not great players or good players anyway. And
STR 8 up DO says Larry Foote. I'm sorry, I did interrupt you.
Oh no, you're fine. Well, I just wanted to say that everybody's talking about the touchdown that David Johnson and they said that Edmonds took a bad angle. I think he played that as well as he could. Kyler Murray's the #1 overall pick, and he just threw it where it had to be. If a Steeler quarterback threw that touchdown, they would say he put it right where it had to be, just like we were saying that about the one he threw to Deontay Johnson. So I think Edmonds has taken a lot of flack for that touchdown yesterday, and I think he played it about as well as he could.
One question that kept on coming up last night on the post game, and we did not get a chance to address. And Javman kept on bringing this up, a great contributor to the show. He kept on bringing up the fact that Marquise Pouncey did not have a good game yesterday. And I've noticed a few things that I thought, did he look rusty to you? Because he looked a little rusty to me. But I mean, coming off of that suspension, but I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. But did you notice the same thing that Javman and I were noticing? Yeah,
and what I want to know is what's with the continued problem with him with the shotgun snap, and that was going on before his suspension. You got a couple young quarterbacks back there, and now you have Duck Hodges back there. Before it was Mason Rudolph, and one of these days that's going to be a disaster. So I don't know what the deal is, but he's a Pro Bowl center, and now all of a sudden he's having trouble with accurate snaps on the shotgun. So that's the first thing I noticed is he didn't get that corrected during his 2 or 3 weeks off.
That's I noticed that yesterday. I'm still not completely I don't think he's washed up. I just think maybe age is, I mean, gosh, you're looking at what an 11-year player now too. Maybe you're just getting some wear and tear on it, and he's not playing as well. He did make a comment a couple weeks back when he was actually a week ago when he was coming off of suspension. He's like, man, I tell you what, BJ Finney just made a lot of money in my absence.
Yeah.
And I really think he did. So it's about time to go ahead and wrap up the show. We're a little over an hour here. I appreciate everything. It was a great show. Great conversations. Tony, thank you so much. I do want to go ahead and address something that's coming up that we've been teasing and talking about a lot. It is it's the Pittsburgh Buffalo game. And that's a huge game. We have been talking about going and tailgating. The original thought was to go ahead because it was a 1:00 game to be there and hang out. Dave and I also live more than 3 hours away, and them flexing this out when we saw that, we were like, oh no. Now, at this point right now, we are still going to that game. However, I mean, we're still in situations where we do have other jobs, and I do work the next day. And with this time of the year, I do want to be at work for that. But if you do want to go to that game, please contact Dave Schofield, and you could acquire his tickets from him if that's something you want to go do. But at this point, we're still going, but the tickets are up for grabs if somebody wants them. We're willing to be flexible on that because of the situation. And it's a game I definitely want to go see. But to be perfectly honest with you, I want to see it more at 1:00 just because of how far away I am. And for anybody that has offered me a place to stay and everything, I do appreciate that. That's great, but it's all about getting back and family responsibility and work responsibilities. But right now, we're still planning on going to that game. But if you do want to go and you want the tickets for a fantastic game, contact Dave. I would go ahead and give his email address, but you can go ahead and find it on Dante Harris is going to write me a doctor's excuse. That's awesome. But you can go ahead and find it on the Behind the Steel Curtain site. It's STLR, all caps, then superfan dad at gmail.com. But let us know if you do want to go ahead and go to that game. But if not, you'll see me. Hopefully, if it comes in time with my Duck jersey. But if not, you'll see us right here on the Behind the Steel Curtain family of podcast. With that being said, Tony, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bryan. It was a great show, a spirited show, and I think we're all super excited because we all have playoff fever. 3 more games to go.
We do have playoff fever, and look, this is probably a record for us. We got up to 195 in the live chat. That's really good. And I tell you what, I have never really, I don't think we've broken 200. And it's all a part of the community we have here. And so I thank you so much, everybody in the live chat. Tony, I thank you. Dave Schofield helped us out too as well. Remember, Behind the Steel Curtain is giving you about 10 articles every single day. It's new stuff, and it's whatever you want. It's all out there. We've got a great family of podcasts. On Tuesday, you've got the Schofields. You've got Stat Geek with Dave Schofield, and Big Bro Sco comes in every once in a while as well. On Wednesday, the Standard is the Standard with Jeff Hartman and Lance Williams. That's our flagship show. On Thursday night, what's Thursday night? It's the Steelers preview as we get ready for the Buffalo game. Check that out with Jeff, Dave, and myself. On Friday night, it's usually Yeah, I Said It with Lance Williams. On Saturday, it's the Steelers Burning Question as we go ahead and rotate through. And then on Sunday, of course, you're watching football. You have the Steelers post game. We're always going to add some. We're even talking about adding some podcast as well. We might be bringing someone else in, and I might be doing, and we're in talks right now to do an NFL playoff type show as well. So we have so much going on here, and we want you to be a part of it. You're what drives us. So thank you very much. With that being said, for Tony Defeo, my name is Bryan Anthony Davis. You could call me bad. And remember, my friends, you just got hung over. Good day. Good night.